Bird, you need to stop making noise. When my wife and I were remodeling our living room, we wanted to make sure that we had built-in cabinets. And so I went ahead and created the frame and everything was ready to go, and I went online to see how much cabinet doors were worth. They were expensive. And so I decided, let's just go ahead and make them ourselves and show you how to do the same. Hey everyone, welcome to Salt Life Builds. My name is Drew and I am a retired middle school science teacher who now owns his own general contracting business. And this channel is specifically designed to help the average person create professional looking DIY projects that they can do themselves and do it on a budget. And if this video helped you out at all, please consider leaving a like and a comment below. I'm relatively new to YouTube and it has been an absolute blast to interact with all of the people who are subscribed. And it's been a lot of fun to see this small group of DIYers come together and start to do things that they love. So if that's you, hit the subscribe button and let's get into it. Now before we start, we're gonna talk about the tools and materials that you're gonna need to create your cabinet doors. You're gonna need 5 different tools: a pencil, tape measure, clamps, table saw, and a miter saw. And for the materials, it's also pretty simple. You just need glue, a 1x3 8-foot piece of pine, and a 1/4 inch piece of plywood. Now the first thing you're gonna wanna do is decide what the dimensions of the doors need to be. Mine are 18 inches wide by 32 inches long. Once you've got that figured out, you can go ahead and make the cuts. You're first gonna start with the length. So I'm gonna cut 2 pieces to 32 inches. Now that we have 2 pieces cut to 32 inches, I'm gonna go ahead and find the width of these combined, which puts us at 5 inches. And because we have 5 inches, we're actually gonna take 5 inches off of 18, which will give us the width. So 18 minus 5, 13. Yeah. And now we're gonna take all these pieces and run them through the table saw. Now that we're at the table saw, what we're gonna do is cut grooves into all 4 of the frame pieces. So we're gonna raise our table saw blade about a 1/2 inch up. About right there. This is going to be the grooves that we cut through. The next step is to find the middle. Now, the great thing about this is it doesn't have to be exactly in the middle because I'm gonna show you a trick you can do. So I'm gonna put my piece up against the rail, move it over till we get about halfway and lock it in. And now we're gonna run the piece through to see how it fits. Now to make sure that the groove is perfectly centered, we're gonna take the piece that we just ran through and we're going to flip it 180 degrees and run it through again. That's going to give you a perfect centered cut. Now before you cut any other pieces, you need to make sure you check to see if your plywood can fit. It's a little small, so all we're gonna do is unlock our track and just slide it out just a touch. Lock it back in and we'll run it through twice. So now that I'm happy with how far the rail is compared to the blade, we're gonna go ahead and run all the other pieces through. Before I do though, I wanna just remind you, please be careful when using these. I'm always really respectful of the tool, and I know that it has a lot of power. So when I run these through, take your time, be cautious about where your fingers are, and just do what you need to do to be safe. All right, let's finish these up. Now, because we ran these through with a wider railing, as you can see, there is a small little piece in between the flips. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna just line up our rail with the middle, and we're gonna go ahead and clear that piece out. Now that we have the grooves cut, we're going to butt up two of the pieces, and we need to make a tongue and groove so that it can fit. So the easiest way to do this is to line them up and mark where that groove will sit. Once you have the mark, you're going to measure how deep it is. So this is about 5/8. And we're gonna take that measurement and put it onto here, 5/8. Now the first step to cut the tongue is we need to raise the blade enough to where it's going to be shaving off that part. Once you have the height of the blade set, the next step is to make sure your rail is positioned so that your line is on the outside. So now you can cut all of this off on both sides, and you should create your tongue. Check to see if it fits, and if it's just a little too big, all you're gonna do is just raise your blade length just a touch. Now that we have our tongue cut, we're gonna see if it fits the groove, just like that. And now we're gonna go ahead and cut the other three sides of our widths. Make sure you got them squared up. Take your clamp, clamp them together, not too tight, just enough. Make sure you line them up again. Now what I like to also do is take a little bit of wood glue, put on my finger, just so that if there's any gaps whatsoever, the wood glue will fill it while it hardens. And then when we come out to paint it, it should be filled in. Now an important thing to remember about your cabinet doors, you don't want to glue in your panel into the frame because wood's gonna expand and contract as the temperature changes. So you want to create this as a floating board so that as the wood expands and contracts, this panel can move freely within the wood. To make sure that we can slide this in, we only glued up one side, and while it's drying, we're gonna go ahead and cut our panel to size. So to find the dimension of the plywood that we need to cut, we're gonna take our other width piece and slide it in to where we want it to go. And now we're gonna measure the inside of the frame. So our width is 11 inches and 7/8. And our length is 27 1/8. Now remember, we cut 1/2 inch into each of these frame pieces, which means I'm gonna add about 3/4 of an inch onto those measurements, giving me the dimensions of my panel. So the width I need to cut is 12 5/8. So I'm gonna line this up, get to 12 5/8, lock it in, and run my plywood through. And my length is going to be cut at 27 7/8. We're going to go ahead, put it on the tongue. Then we're going to take it, slide it in. Okay, so it's been about 2 hours, so I'm gonna go ahead and remove these clamps. And there's your cabinet door. Now I'm gonna take you inside and show you what I did next. Now that we have our board completed, I wanted to show you a couple things that you might wanna do to touch it up. This joint right here worked out amazingly. It was really tight, and so I didn't really have to do anything to fix it. This joint on the other side, not so much. So the best way to fix this is if you take some wood filler, go ahead and patch it up, and then come back and sand it with 120 grit. And then after it was assembled and you had all the cracks and gaps filled, I painted it white, added white silicone around the edges, added the hardware, and you got yourself cabinet doors. Now before I end, if you do have a router, they do make special router bits for tongue and grooves to make a perfect fit every time. You just run it through and you're good. But if you don't have a router, the table saw is the next best option. Just please be careful when you're using it. And if you don't ever feel comfortable about using a power tool, don't push it. If you have any questions, please leave them down below. I try to get to every comment that I see. Leave a like, subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one. See ya. Bird, you need to stop making noise.